some of the people out there listening are getting goals handed to them. And they're looking at this big, massive, 365 day, number they got to go hit. Break it down.
Yeah. I don't recall really in my history of sales and sales management, anyone ever getting their quota for the year and saying, oh, that's not so bad. David Sandler had a really good way of looking at goals. And what he said is that you should set goals that are so high that you would only achieve them 25% of the time. I was working with a CEO the other day, and their business goal in 10 years is to go from $200 million to $1 billion. Okay. And somebody said, well, what happens if we don't get there? He goes, we're going to be happy at 800 million.
No doubt. We're going to be 4 times as happy.
That's right.
We'll be not quite 5.
Not quite 5. Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw. Hey everybody, welcome back to Building Your Sales Engine. I am your host, Mark McGraw. Today, I sit down with Mr. Josh Pitchford. You know him, you love him. He's part of our team. He's been on the podcast many times before. And today, we're going to work on how do you think about starting the year off right? Do you have a good checklist? Do you have a good system in place for ensuring that all of the steps are there so that you can be highly confident when you start either a new year or a new quarter? So we're going to dive in with Josh. As always, we ask you to like and subscribe and share this podcast with others. It helps us so much in terms of our ability to bring more episodes to you. Let's dive in with Josh. Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Building Your Sales Engine. I am your host, Mark McGraw. I am with my good friend, colleague, and business partner, Mr. Josh Pitchford.
Great to be back. So much fun to do these.
It is fun to do these. We have a good time doing it.
Absolutely. So looking forward to this one. 'Tis the season in the sales world.
Yes, it is.
Isn't it? So
'tis the season to be thinking about how do we finish off or start the new year? Do we have everything in place? We have built a checklist for our listeners to think about. What are the 6 things that they need to make sure? Who knows, maybe we have bonus material, would not surprise me. But what are the 6 things that we need to have in place as a seller to make sure that we are locked and loaded, whether we're finishing the year in December or starting the year in January? These are good planning tools to make sure that you've got everything in line. So shall we dive in?
Absolutely. The good news is about this is, I always say, inside of Sandler, we have the thing upfront contracts. You want to finish strong to start strong, your next step, right? Start strong to finish strong and finish strong to start strong, every step along the way. And this checklist kind of looks at that in that way at, end of the year, beginning of the year. But sellers and sales leaders out there should be looking at these probably quarterly, going back and revisiting all these. So hopefully there's some value out here. And as you said, bonus material we'll think of along the way.
Me.
So,
we'll get some of that comes along the way. Number 1 would not surprise anybody is make sure that you have written goals. Everything is mapped out in terms of what you want to do, both personally and professionally, but certainly on the professional side of things. Sure. We certainly want to have those. Couple of things that Josh, that people should have in place with respect to their business goals. Anything like what leaps out at you?
I'm always going back to the mindset side of things. And, I don't even know how accurate the stats are anymore. 97% of Americans don't have written goals and all those things. And so I think sometimes it goes back to a mindset around goals. And what I've compared it to before is a lot of people don't have a personal budget, if you will. And they're afraid of what would happen if they have a budget because there's some sort of built-in accountability there. And then when they do a budget, they start to realize, hey, I've got more money floating around and I get to, get a map of where it needs to go.
And you're referring to a budget with respect to your personal finances.
Budget.
Okay.
And where I'm going with that is same thing happens with your professional goals, especially in the sales world. And when you start actually looking at it, it becomes much more doable. Because when we look at it on an annualized basis, let's be fair, some of the people out there listening are getting goals handed to them. And they're looking at this big, massive, 365 day, number they got to go hit. Break it down.
Yeah.
And knowing how to do that, break it down into smaller chunks is something that can be somewhat freeing versus daunting when you're sitting there on January 2nd saying, what have you done for me lately?
You think about, by the way, I don't recall really in my history of sales and sales management, anyone ever getting their quota for the year and saying, oh, that's not so bad. It's usually there's a big lump in your throat and you're like, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? And I think to your point, going and creating a quarterly revenue map that says, this quarter, this is what I need to make sure that I get sold and done. And by the way, a lot of times, certain people in their professions, they already have some existing, let's say, renewals business. So back that out of the number. Go look and find out what the gap number is based upon either your current forecasts or your current budgets that you've got going in of what you're forecasting. And so it can be daunting to look at the whole number, but if you start to back out and say, okay, I got this amount of recurring revenue, let's say, or I have this amount of forecasted opportunities, and start backing it out such that you see the gap number, not the whole number, and look at it quarterly, if not even on a smaller basis, sometimes monthly, rather than looking at it a whole year, because that just becomes, to your word, daunting.
It does become daunting. I love the term revenue map. That quarterly revenue map is like, okay, how am I going to go hit this? And chunking it down does make it a little bit more palatable, because you're right. No one's ever looked at their quota and said, oh, it's not that bad. And so I think it's a great way to look at it.
And to me, when we get given goals, okay, that's what the company goal is, but that doesn't mean that that's what your goal is as an individual. The most successful people that I know take that number that they are given and they say, all right, what's my personal stretch goal? And they may or may not share that with their management. Truth be told, I've seen that over and over, but they have their own personal stretch goal. And that's a number that they want to go hit. And that number better be higher than what the company goal is, obviously. But I think David Sandler had a really good way of looking at goals. And what he said is that you should set goals that are so high that you would only achieve them 25% of the time. Have you heard that? I'm looking at your face. No?
I've been around Sandler for years and I haven't heard this.
Yeah, that was one of Sandler's teachings. David Sandler, and he said, set goals that you would only achieve 25% of the time. And at first, when I first heard that, I was like, no, no. And the more I thought about it, the more I thought that makes a lot of sense. If we're not tying our identity to our goals,
absolutely.
Therefore, if we don't succeed in the goal, it doesn't make us a failure. It just makes it that we may need to extend the timeline, or it's a role miss, not a miss as a human being. When we set higher goals for ourselves, we're more likely to do the activities necessary to achieve it. And I was working with a CEO the other day, and their business goal in 10 years is to go from $200 million to $1 billion. Okay. And somebody said, well, what happens if we don't get there? He goes, we're going to be happy at 800 million.
No doubt. We're going to be 4 times as happy.
That's right. We'll be
not quite 5.
Not quite 5. And I love that way of thinking about it, because you can set a high goal, and if you don't achieve it, look, you want to put effort into achieving it, but it's not like it's going to be a personal affront to you if you don't get there.
No doubt. And I'm so glad you brought up IR theory, because so many people have a hard time setting those stretch goals because they attach how they feel about themselves to achieving the goals. And that's something we talk about here. And, the other thing is when you take whatever the company hands to you and then you say, okay, here's my stretch goal. Like you said, don't have to share it all the time, but there's a reason why behind that. I like to take the Sandler rule: people buy for their reasons, not ours. People buy in for their reasons, not ours.
That's a great way.
There's just so much more buy-in when you have intrinsic motivation that there's some reason you want to go get that. What is that goal attached to? I mean, new house, car, whatever, vacation, giving you something that's personally motivating to get there, that it's not just, hey, I got to go hit this company goal. Because at the end of the day, we're all intrinsically motivated for our own personal reasons.
And for that reason, when we do an annual 3-part goal setting workshop for clients. We had 150 people registered for it the other day, and quite almost all of them showed up. And one of the things that comes out of that is that we spend time, and our listeners should too, if you're not in those workshops, spend time identifying what your personal goals are as well as your business goals, because it's the personal goals that give us the motivation to do the work in the business side of things. And it drives us over there. So the bigger and more ambitious we are on our personal goals, generally, the more committed we are to getting to the professional goals.
No doubt about it. I mean, when you look at it, that motivation is what breeds the consistency. So, we have our list here. If we skip down and look at, to use the Sandler terminology, cookbook, you're more likely, in a cookbook is a recipe for success. It's doing the math on what are my daily, weekly, monthly behavior goals that are absolutely controllable, that then influence leading indicators, which help us hit the lagging indicators of the revenue goals, that big, huge thing. Well, if you have intrinsic motivation, you're more likely to consistently do the behavior goals and hit your cookbook goals if you've got a bigger reason why you're doing it than just hitting the company's number.
That's right, because you're doing it for your own reasons, not for the company's reasons. Well, by the way, you can do it for both. That's even better, for sure. So let's take that and say, if number one is make sure that you've got your bigger picture goals. Number two in our list here is going to be have a good behavior plan or cookbook.
Sure.
And we just talked a little bit about that. That cookbook, you called it out a second ago. It is the recipe for success. It's if I do these behaviors and activities that I can control and influence, numbers of calls, number of networking events, if that's what you're doing, number of referral asks, outbound emails, could be LinkedIn targets, whatever it is. Have that list of 4 to 7 activities that you do and what your goal is for the week, and track and measure to that. And that needs to be updated quarterly as you go through.
Don't change it every week or every month. Always look back on your quarterly, and that should be, I made reference to it earlier. Relooking at this list on a quarterly basis is a great way to go back, see where you are on that revenue map.
Yep.
Right. And adjust your cookbook and look at it, and say, is this working or is this not? Do I need to, it's a good activity or a good behavior. Am I very good at it?
Yeah.
You might need to get better if part of your role is making a cold call and you're terrible at it. Well, elevate your skills in that area so they're more effective. If you're getting a lot of, connects, but not having a whole lot of, meaningful conversations, you can start judging how impactful each of those behaviors is.
And I think too, those behaviors change over time. So, if there's a time and a place where, let's say, in a traditional sense, a cold call might be less effective, maybe you want to work towards webinars, or you want to work towards talks to groups. I was coaching a client the other day, a group of folks in the wealth management space, and that was one of the things that became clear is that they needed to do a better job of building out their talks to certain audiences where they get in front of a room and do a talk that brings value and that brings interest on that. So you got to mix up your cookbook based upon what happens at any given time.
No doubt about it. I think that kind of leads in a little bit, and I know I'm bouncing around on your list here a little bit, but using the Sandler KARE model to build out your cookbook.
Okay.
We talk about account segmentation. This is another thing on our list here, talking about how do we segment our accounts, your territory zone segmentations, all that stuff. Inside of Sandler, for the listeners out there, we've got the KARE model. And the KARE model, while we're good at selling, we're not great at spelling. The KARE model is actually spelled with a K, and it's KARE, and it stands for keep, attain, recapture, and expand. And so that's a framework people can use to build out a behavior plan, the cookbook, to say, hey, what do I need to do to make sure I'm keeping the accounts I have? We referenced earlier when you looked at your quarterly revenue map, you might have reoccurring revenue in there. You might have some renewals coming up. Some accounts you're currently working. It's not all just new logos. That would be represented in the Attain part. So what do you need to do as far as keeping accounts and then identifying expansion opportunities? And then, of course, the Attain piece is new logos. And then what you were just referencing there made me kind of go in that direction, talking about that team in the financial space. What a great way to re-engage people or recapture people doing talks and just giving value.
Yeah.
And so, especially in that world, if you happen to be in that world or any of it, is give yourself an excuse to reach out to people.
And serve and give.
Yes.
Bring value to other people. I mean, that's where the game is won.
Pretty much. And so breaking down your cookbook by the KARE model is a nice little framework for people to use.
And so item 3 on our list, we just talked about part of that, which is segmenting accounts. And that's if you have an account base. I think there's another piece to this. For many, 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 many years, I had accounts as a seller when I was selling non-Sandler stuff way back when, and I had a territory. And we had accounts within the territory, but I had to segment my territory by zones. Otherwise, I would end up spending, I'd spend, a little bit of time in one city and a little bit of time in the next city, and I would bounce around my territory, and I was very inefficient. And as a result of that, I always laugh. My sales manager called me in the office one day, and she said, "You," and I was brand new into sales. She said, "You, Mark, are a star salesman." And I knew, based on the tonality, this was not going to go well. And what she pulled out a piece of paper and she started to draw a star on a blank piece of paper. And her point is you start over here and then you drive across your territory over here and then you're down over here to the left. And when she was done, she had drawn a star, and she's right, because I wasn't thinking about my accounts and I was inefficient with how I was using my time. So I think when people think about, and our listeners have different types of sales roles, but if your territory or if your accounts are more geographic based, zone them such that when you're in a zone, you're going to work those accounts in the zone, and you're going to say no to an immediate response that somebody has. If you're not going to be in that zone, you're going to say, "Hey, can we do it the following week? Is it going to impact the deal if we did it 4 days later, because I'm going to be there then," as opposed to just immediately dropping everything and jumping over to that other part of the territory.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just being dedicated to running your business versus letting your business run you, kind of say.
Sandler rule, you're either part of your own plan or someone else's.
Absolutely.
And I think it applies there.
It reminds me a coaching I did for one of our clients. This has been a few weeks ago now, and they have territory zones, and there's all these different stops that a rep has to make. And taking those addresses and taking those and throwing them in ChatGPT or something like that, it will lay out based on where you are, traffic patterns. It knows it all. It will tell you what pattern to go in for maximum efficiency. That's the world we're living in now.
And it's a beautiful world.
Isn't it? We don't have,
times
we're going to age ourselves a little bit. We don't have to have the MapQuest directions printed out on the passenger seat. We put it into, ChatGPT, upload that into Waze, and it will just take you off you go. And you put your start and finish at your house, if that's whatever you're doing, and it will tell you the most efficient way to go visit those accounts. And so something very tactical, but if you're not using it, why think it out?
And by the way, it was not our recommendation to go print out MapQuest and put it on.
No, don't do that. 1998 called. You might need to.
I have a family member that still does that, but that's a story for another day.
I'm glad you put that in there.
So if item 3 on our list is segment, and I think that's a really good thing to do over the holidays as you're beginning a year, especially. Let's look at another item. Let's put this at item 4. Which is, I believe, at some level, you need to update your strategic plan for your top accounts.
No doubt.
And know what is it that needs to happen. And I think this is one where you could probably look over the next quarter, more so even than the next year. Depends on your account. But do you have a good strategy for that account? Absolutely. Do you know what you're going to work on? Do you know where your strengths are? Do you know weaknesses? For example, sometimes people will say, "Well, I'm really connected with middle management and the people on the ground floor, but not the executives." So it's part of my strategy to expand relationships higher, deeper, wider within an account. But knowing what's your 3 keys to winning in that account over the next quarter or year, depending upon how you want to lay that out.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up, expanding relationships. Are you building out a relationship map, that we would talk about here, or at a very simply, the 3x3 for wider, higher, and deeper. And then, of course, we talked about the account depth matrix before. What all could I sell all these accounts? And am I selling it already to them? Am I already in there? Is there no need for it?
And that's expansion of existing products.
Exactly.
And if you're selling product A and B, could you be selling C, D, and E?
Absolutely.
And those tools help us be able to identify the white space that fall into the strategy of how do I grow this account?
No doubt. And it's the K and the E in the KARE model that we talked about earlier. As you start to build,
expand.
Absolutely. It's the keep and the expand. And as we start to build these, I hope everyone out there is thinking about, how do I use each of these tools, building on top of them to really build out a solid plan for executing in the coming year.
So having a strong concept of the key ingredients that make up an account plan. By the way, if folks need help with those things, reach out to us. We're happy to help out. It's part of what we do on the sales coaching and consulting side of things, is to help people develop account plans and or territory plans, because they really are helpful in terms of having a roadmap for how do you go think about growth within a set of accounts. Now, you're probably not going to do that with every account you have, because it just takes a fair amount of time. But the 80-20 rule is going to apply there. 20% of your accounts are going to make up 80% of the revenue. So why not have a plan for those key accounts that you're working on?
Absolutely.
That's part of that item 4, update your strategic plan, at least of your top 10 accounts. Let's go to number 5 on your checklist of how do you start and finish your year strong. This one's going to be skill development. You want to take this one?
I think it all goes into everything that we've built up so far. And you made reference to it just a minute ago, is if you look at, I need to go improve relationships in a specific account. Maybe you look at your account depth matrix, the white space that you referred to, that there's more products or services that you could sell into a specific account. Maybe you need to have a better account management skills or better prospecting skills in some way, developing your 30-second commercial, and just, to make sure you're better navigating conversations and just say, if I'm sitting here a year from now and I'm going to go hit this plan, be honest with yourself. What are you going to have to be better at? And it's hard sometimes, but what a wonderful time to sit there and look internally and say, okay, I do need to get better in a particular area as far as navigating the conversation or whatever it happens to be. That
journaling is an awesome thing to go do as you do that self-reflection. And to your point, I think, those skills, I tell you what, AI is a big one right now for sure, and will continue to be one. So how are your AI skills today? And is that something, I know I'll speak personally, I spent months and months of this year just getting better at AI. And honestly, if I'm, true confessions, I gave up evening activities that weren't as productive, and I swapped those activities of watching TV and other stuff for sitting in front of my laptop and working and understanding AI better, just as a skill set.
And it has served our business greatly.
Well, thank you.
that time. So speaking from the inside, it's amazing some of the stuff that you bring to the table. But, everyone needs to do that. I would challenge that we should go all the way back up to Cookbook and say, if you have not, number one, embraced, or you're not spending enough time embracing and figuring out where you can leverage different AI tools in your role as a seller, you have to have that in your cookbook. That one time a day, 3 times a week, that you're going to spend so much time researching, playing with, doing something on some sort of AI tool that you can leverage and learn something about. Because you'll just sit there and start to learn so much, and the creativity takes over, and you start thinking about, I can use this for that. So I'm encouraging a lot of people in these conversations. I'm having one-on-one coaching calls with clients right now about these very things. Do they have an AI time, if you will, in their cookbook?
And so that would be a certain amount of time every morning or every day, or maybe 3 times a week, where you spend 30 or 40 minutes doing those things. You're making me laugh. This morning at, let's see, what was it? 5:30, 5:45. I had wanted to learn how to do shortcuts on my iPhone. So I was playing around with shortcuts at whatever dark 30 this morning. And, there's some efficiency things that come out of that. And you stumble into new ideas as a result of being able to use those types of tools. So skill development is a big one on that. By the way, another shameless plug here for Sandler. Of course, that's a big part of what we do on the sales side of things. The last item 6 on our list, may be the most important. And so when we were thinking through the checklist for starting the year, to me, evaluating your own mindset. What are your self-limiting beliefs that you have? What are the things that are holding you back from growing your business from a psychological point of view? Are there fears that you have? Are there preconceived beliefs that you have about either your product or the company or the marketplace that are keeping you from getting to a next level? And what do you need to do to, A, identify them, and B, crush them like a grape? So what would you say about the mindset evaluation as far as starting a year with that?
No doubt. You know that we talk a lot about the mindset. People come to Sandler, as you just mentioned, for the skills, the tactical stuff, right? Our hand-to-hand conversational stuff. It's great. But we spend an inordinate amount of time talking about the mindset.
Yeah.
And we refer to something called the belief wheel. And the belief wheel starts with whatever belief you had, self-limiting or a belief you can leverage. It's either or. However you see a particular area is, if you start with a particular belief, you then quickly see the evidence to support that belief. You make judgments from that. So you take certain actions, and those actions give you the results. And so this is a time, as you're looking to, get ready for the next year, the next quarter, you need to look back a little bit and say, what are the results I got? What actions got me there? And therefore, what belief systems drove those actions in sometimes? And you have to decide right then and there that in order to get the results I want, I'm going to change my actions, because you can change actions on a dime. It takes a little time to change those mindsets and belief systems, but you have to do something in order to start changing them. You mentioned earlier, journaling. The first step, like you were saying just a minute ago, you're like the first thing you have to identify them. Second thing is squash them like a grape. I always joke around and go back to the 1995 classic, Tommy Boy, right? As, Ray Zielinski said, great, you've identified it. Next step is washing it off. Okay. And that is a belief system thing, is that you have to be able to identify it, be honest with yourself, and just decide that that's not serving me now and into the future. So I have to be very cognizant of it when it happens, such that I can take a different action regardless of how I feel.
So let's use a real example. If someone says clients aren't going to give me referrals, as an example, then that seller is not going to ask for referrals. Therefore, they're not going to get referrals. It's going to reinforce their belief that referrals don't work in their business.
Absolutely.
Flip it around, and then they start to act, and they expect people to offer referrals and introductions. And the first one they get, now it breaks that belief, because now it's possible, or they meet one of their other colleagues that's selling something similar in the same industry to the same people, and they're getting referrals and you're not. So I think all sellers should be looking at what is it that other people are doing that they're not doing, that they hold a better belief than you do about that particular activity or outcome.
It's fantastic. And referrals is a perfect one that should be in everyone's cookbook.
Yes.
If you struggle in that area, you got to go look at your beliefs, your belief wheel, your belief systems around it. And there's so much head trash, as we would call it, around referrals and all those things. And the only thing that are going to change the results they're currently getting is just deciding to put referral ask in their cookbook.
Do it in spite of how you feel.
Do it in spite of how you feel. It's not how you feel that determines how you act. It's how you act that determines how you feel. One of my favorite Sandler rules. And just do it regardless.
Yep. And when you do it and you get the positive result, it changes the belief that you have. And you're like, all of a sudden now, well, I can't use that excuse anymore.
Absolutely. It's just breaking down all the excuses one after one.
So those are our 6. Now, could there be a lot more? Absolutely. I mean, every business and every industry different, but the big 6 are right in front of you right there. I'll just rattle them off here quick. Make sure you have really good, strong written goals for the year. If it's in your brain, that's nice, but if it's on paper, it's better. Number 2 is plan out your cookbook or your behavior plan, reevaluate that constantly. Number 3 is segments, whether it's your account segments using the KARE model or territories and zones. But think about how you're going to segment your time within your accounts. Number 4 is your strategic plan for your top accounts. Number 5, skill development. And number 6, mindset development. And we could probably make this list 60 items long, but that's a good place to start as someone's looking for a framework to either start their year off strong or to finish off the year and get ready for the next one. So,
absolutely.
Excellent.
That's a great list. We wish everyone the best of luck in finishing strong and starting stronger even in next year.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Thanks
well, this is actually episode number 50 for us. We are celebrating that. We set out a goal last year.
We wrote this goal down, and lo and behold, here we are doing it.
And here we are. So enjoy doing these with you, Josh. We're going to do a lot more again next year and continue to bring these to the good souls out there.
Thanks so much for having me. Looking forward to the next one.
Indeed, indeed. We'll do it again.
Thanks again.